This is Cultural Field Notes with Madam Slyther Shade, where classic literature meets modern culture, social performance, reputation politics, public scandal, and beautifully documented human foolishness.
And today's field note is this. Taylor Frankie Paul is basically Lydia Bennet with TikTok. Now, at first, that sounds like the kind of comparison that should stay in a notes app and never see daylight. It sounds unserious. It sounds chaotic. It sounds like Jane Austen is about to be dragged into mum talk discourse against her will. But think about it for more than 5 seconds, and suddenly the comparison starts looking deeply, almost suspiciously accurate. The connection isn't that both women are linked to scandal. That would be too simple. The real connection is that both women create consequences that spread beyond themselves. Lydia does it in Regency England. Taylor does it in the age of TikTok, reality television, and public visibility. Different century, same social mechanism. In both cases, a woman acts impulsively inside a highly observant social world, and her behaviour becomes larger than her. To understand Lydia, you have to start with attention. Austen tells us that Lydia was a favourite with her mother, whose affection had brought her into public at an early age. Chapter 39. That line is crucial. Lydia has been taught very early that being noticed is a kind of success. Mrs. Bennet rewards her noise. The officers reward her flirtation. The social world around her rewards visibility, excitement, and male attention. So when Lydia runs towards the next thrill, she is not behaving in a vacuum. She is behaving like someone who has been told, repeatedly and carelessly, that attention means she is winning. Now shift that mechanism into the modern world. Taylor exists inside a culture where visibility is not just rewarded. This is where both women become interesting. Followers, views. Lydia does not simply enjoy reality television. She begins to move as though attention reaction content from brand attention. Taylor, similarly, has changed, becomes fascinating because she belongs to an environment where being seen can easily become confused through the militia. Safe. For Taylor, attention comes through the algorithm. Unfortunately, attention often does the opposite. It creates witnesses. It creates gossip. It creates receipts. It creates an audience that feels entitled to judge every decision after the fact. This is the core mechanism of the whole comparison. Neither Lydia nor Taylor is simply dramatic. The real issue is that their private choices do not stay private. When Lydia runs off with Wickham, she thinks she is starring in a romantic adventure. She writes, "What a good joke it will be." Chapter 47. That line is almost shocking. Because Lydia experiences excitement, while everyone else experiences catastrophe. Elizabeth understands the danger immediately. Mr. Gardiner understands it. Jane understands it. Even the reader understands it. Lydia is the last person in the room to understand the meaning of her own scandal. And that is why Austen is so sharp. She does not simply give us a scandal. She gives us a character who cannot read the social consequences of her own actions. Taylor works as a modern comparison because her public controversies also stop being private very quickly. And this is where the tone needs to stay serious. We are not treating domestic violence, family conflict, legal issues, or distress as a punchline. The comparison is about the social mechanism, how a private relationship crisis becomes a public narrative. Once that happens, people pick sides. Friendships fracture. Production decisions change. Brands become involved. Audiences turn private behaviour into public evidence. The individual event becomes a community event. Not simply chaos. Fallout. Not simply mess. Mess that spreads. Modern audiences often think reputation is personal. Austen's world does not. In Pride and Prejudice, Lydia's behaviour does not remain Lydia's problem. It spills onto Jane. It spills onto Elizabeth. It spills onto Mary and Kitty. It spills onto the whole Bennet family. This is crucial for students because Lydia is not just there to be silly. She exposes how female reputation works as a collective social system. One daughter's scandal can damage every sister's marriage prospects. One act of recklessness can become a family crisis. One public embarrassment can become a structural threat. That is why the whole household panics. Not because they are being dramatic for fun. Although Mrs. Bennet will never miss an opportunity to serve theatrical collapse. They panic because, in that society, reputation travels faster than explanation. Taylor's public image works through a surprisingly similar pattern. Public scrutiny does not stop neatly with one person. Friends become implicated. Ex-partners become implicated. Co-stars become implicated. Entire social circles become interpreted through the scandal. People ask, who knew? Who enabled it? Who defended whom? Who distanced themselves? Who benefited from the chaos? In both worlds, behaviour travels. It gets interpreted. It gets attached to other people. It becomes communal. Or, to put it more simply, your mess has networking skills. Now, this is where a lot of students flatten Lydia. They write as though she is the villain of the novel. But Austen gives us something more uncomfortable than a villain. She gives us carelessness. Lydia is impulsive, vain, immature, attention-seeking, and very willing to follow her immediate desires without thinking seriously about the cost. But she is not especially calculating. Villains create conflict intentionally. Careless people create collateral damage without pausing to count it. And in a highly social world, carelessness can be just as destructive as malice. Mr. Bennet eventually admits, "Who should suffer but myself? It has been my own doing, and I ought to feel it." Chapter 48. That confession changes everything. Suddenly, Austen is not only blaming Lydia, she is examining the system that created Lydia. Weak parental boundaries, poor guidance, a society obsessed with marriage and reputation. Taylor often generates the same kind of audience debate. People do not only ask what happened, they ask what she understood, what she ignored, what she repeated, what she failed to anticipate. Was it malicious, reckless, naive, poorly judged, a pattern, a crisis, a performance culture eating itself? That ambiguity is why people keep talking. A villain gives you clarity. A careless person in a social world gives you fallout. But Austen is not finished. Because if we stop at Lydia is reckless, we still have not gone far enough. The better question is, who allowed Lydia to become Lydia? And this is where Mr. Bennet needs to come to the front of the class. Because, sir, we need a word. After Lydia's elopement, Mr. Bennet admits to Elizabeth, "No, Lizzie, let me once in my life feel how much I have been to blame." That line matters because it shifts the spotlight. Suddenly, Lydia is not the entire problem. The family system is the problem too. Mrs. Bennet encourages foolishness because she treats marriage as the only meaningful ambition for her daughters. Mr. Bennet sees the foolishness, mocks it, retreats from it, and fails to correct it. He is witty, yes. He is entertaining, absolutely. But in terms of parenting, Sir has been on mute for several chapters. Austen is exposing the danger of weak guidance. Lydia is not simply born chaotic and released into the world like a Regency firework. She is shaped by poor boundaries, inconsistent discipline, and a household where embarrassment is treated as amusing until it becomes expensive. Taylor raises a modern version of the same question. What makes Taylor Frankie Paul Taylor Frankie Paul? Not simply personality, not simply scandal, not simply one bad decision repeated in public. It is the environment around her. A culture where confession becomes content.
Yes, you did have sex.
Where oversharing is mistaken for honesty. Where emotional chaos can become engagement. Where private pain becomes public narrative. Where an audience watches the crisis unfold, comments on it, profits emotionally from it, and then acts shocked when the person inside the crisis begins to live as though crisis is part of the performance. This is the part that makes both stories feel so current. Society often rewards women for being visible, entertaining, desirable, available, dramatic, and easy to talk about. Then, when that visibility becomes inconvenient, society suddenly becomes extremely interested in respectability. Lydia is encouraged to seek male attention. She is encouraged to think officers are exciting. She is encouraged by her mother and her social world to view marriage as the grand prize. But when she pursues that attention badly, the punishment is severe. Taylor exists in a modern system that also rewards spectacle. Reality television rewards confession. TikTok rewards exposure. Audience culture rewards drama. Commentary culture rewards reaction. Then, the moment the spectacle becomes too dark, too serious, too legally complicated, or too damaging to public image, the same culture that watched becomes the culture that judges. That does not mean all judgment is unfair. Sometimes serious behaviour requires serious judgment. But Austen would absolutely recognise the hypocrisy of a society that trains people to perform profits from the performance, and then act scandalised when the performance escapes control. Now let us bring this back to English literature, because this is where the grades are hiding. If you write, "Lydia is silly and immature," that is not wrong. It is just limited. A stronger interpretation is, Austen uses Lydia to demonstrate how female recklessness becomes a collective social threat in a society obsessed with reputation. Lydia isn't simply a character, she's Austen's evidence. She exposes gender expectations, family responsibility, social judgement, and the fragility of reputation. That's where top-band analysis lives. So yes, Taylor Frankie Paul is basically Lydia Bennet with TikTok. Not because they are identical, not because all scandal is interchangeable, and not because Jane Austen was secretly writing reality television, but because both women reveal the same deeper pattern. Private recklessness becoming public fallout in a culture obsessed with reputation. Jane Austen may not have invented reality television, but she absolutely understood the cast. This has been Cultural Field Notes with Madam Slyther Shade, decoding classic literature through modern culture. If you want more literature explained through scandal, social performance, and academically useful shade, subscribe to the Academy and comment below which classic character is secretly a reality TV archetype. Because I already have thoughts, and some of them are deeply disrespectful.